very techno-literate, and I'm sort of the techno-dinosaur. I'm still using the whiteboard. I tend to make references that are 20th century, even though we have a lot of 21st century technology. But again, one of the issues that we were talking about initially is that as we develop academic language, we're using a vocabulary that's very scientific. So many times we have to be able to identify the meaning of the word and use it to get the reader's attention. Particularly if we're developing a title. So many titles in a guideline might be limited to 14 words. That's a very average number. Or they might have another limitation. It might say, the guidelines might be very specific, and this would be with spaces. So specific guidelines many times are going to count the space before and after a word. So certain letters, like plural S, are many times a challenge. Dalam Bahasa Indonesia. If I want to say languages in English, I just add the letter S. But dalam Bahasa Indonesia, I cannot say bahasa. I have to say bahasa. So we tend to have more words in the Indonesian language compared to the English language. So again, when we're looking at the challenges for vocabulary, we can immediately go and see that these challenges extend to how we form words. Initially, we have to spend some time reading and looking at vocabulary lists like this, forming glossaries. So we've provided another sheet called Word Formation. Do you all have this? It's possible that it was left out. Maybe we can look over this out and take it in a pile with it. Here it is. Yep. And watch it. So the English language is actually very simple. When it comes to forming words, we have a kind of mathematical equation for language. It's kind of like huruf dua plus kata equals kalimat. And we do this naturally in almost all languages. Even Indonesian language might take, for instance, a kata sifat, and we can make it into a noun, keterangan, by adding a prefix and a suffix. Usually linguists call this the root or combining form. So if we want to make it into a noun, we can take sehat and make it kesahata. And Indonesian language is very interesting because it can take a word like hati and it can refer to your liver or your heart. So right here, hati-hati di jalan. Careful, so it has a different meaning. But if I'm a cardiologist and I'm saying 2 hearts are better than none, right? Then it has application to text and context, depending. And of course, so we have words like benar, berhati-hatian, kehati-hatian, right? Berhati-hatian. Oh, I'm confused. It is easier in your native language. But in English, let's say we take a root word like this one, and it's an old akar. We use it a lot like this. It is the old Greek word for kata, the old word for word. But then, as we develop it, we realize, well, maybe we can use it to mean the study of something. So we can change this to a Y and add a word like life in front of it. So we get the word biology. Or we can talk about a person who studies biology. It's apa? A biologist. So this part of the sentence, it changes the nature of the noun. It changes it into what we would call so nouns, adjectives, katakiertas, verbs, they're all mostly determined by a sound at the end of the word. And here, we can change its meaning. So another example might be, let's use to write, okay? Now, by itself, it can mean, like Dr. Indra showed, a figure in an article. Or if I want to put it like this, it's the old SMS, telegraph, right? Or if I meet Messi, right, group sepak bola, he might give me an autograph. And maybe if he writes something, it becomes wait, I think we might have to change it, right? Autobiography. So we might have someone like the president write a story about themselves, a self-story, or an autobiography. But again, here, we change the prefix of the word to change its meaning. And we change the suffix of the word to change its part of speech. That's what this is about. It's a reference list to show you common sound changes at the end of English words that would change an adjective to a noun, or an adverb from a verb. And these are useful in building your vocabulary, so that as you're reading, you can decode the word. You can find meaning in the context of the text itself. Now today we had a lot of material given to us. And the next one I want you to look at looks like this. Yes. Now, every book, every thesis, really every article has what we would normally call a table of contents. So already we can sometimes look at the contents of an article or an abstract, so we know ahead of time there'll be pembukaan, an introduction or background, that there'll be a description of the tujuan, a name or an objective. There'll be a specific methodology and materials listed, as well as hasil and some discussion. So when we're outlining our article, in the beginning, it creates what we might call a concept map. And some people, like me, we think in the box. And we use a traditional form of an outline, a table of contents. It helps me to see if there's any gap in my information. But many people now, especially in IT and information technology, they like the bunga, right? The flower design for a map. Any way that we outline our material, it's our starting point. It's something that should be done as we're organizing for writing our rough draft. But you can pick which one. Another example is provided in this form right here. So instead of creating an outline, which I certainly could have, right? We have the main concept here of body systems. And then we have a description around it of what normally is 10 body systems. I think they're missing one here. We have endocrine, nervous system, integumentary, skeletal, muscular, urinary, circulatory, digestive, reproductive. I think there's one missing, but we'll come back to that. But let's look at this and see how an outline can help us to organize our information. All of the answers for this worksheet are at the bottom in the word bank. So Bawa, all of your answers are right here. Now sometimes the questions are difficult, so we might look at number 1 and say, oh, endocrine system works with the nervous system and controls what? Apa. So of course this is Siapkan Tuhan, an amazing design that God has given us. That we have an autonomous nervous system, and we have an active nervous system that works together. So our endocrine system is a balanced system. It can work automatically. So it controls coordination with metabolism. It controls our circadian dial when we're actively awake or when we go to the book and sleep. And we can see in the verb here that we can coordinate the structure of the second. We create the outline first before we actually write our paragraphs or write our sentences. And of course, for number 2, the nervous system includes what? The spinal cord and the brain, yes. Some of these aren't the best copies for this talk. So integument, right? Integument. It functions to protect tissue. And what else does the cooler do? What else does this integument system? Good. So we have urinary, right? Urinary. So we have 2 things here. Functions in temperature regulation. Through the skin and through sweat glands. What about number 5? This system includes bones and support. Skeletal system, right? It's our bones. And it works with the muscular system to function in support and apa. Yes. So it's these 2 systems, muscular and skeletal system, that keep us from being like primate. It gives us posture so that we can sit upright, stand upright. Again, in the center of the design is the idea utama. We're talking about body systems. And then around that are the major systems of the body that are described with sub-details. The catechers are helping us to show that these are interrelated systems. When we look at the urinary system, it includes the bladder and 2 organs right here. The kidneys, right? How about that's a kidney? Renal? Yeah. And we have 2 of them. So if one of them fails, or we need to make a hadiah, we can give it away to someone, right? It's a pretty amazing design. And it filters something from something. So the urinary system uses the bladder and the kidneys to filter 8 from 9. What is 8? Good. Waste, right? That's really what the kidneys are doing. They're a filter system to take waste from the daughter. And we see that there's an interrelation between circulatory system and the urinary system. Because within the circulatory system we have the hati, the heart, and the blood. And it functions in apa. What is the function of the circulatory system? Good. It's kind of like this jogja, right? Transport. The circulatory system is transporting the blood. And within the blood we have an amazing amount of transport. Fat, proteins, white blood cells. And it works with a major system, the digestive system, that break down something to be absorbed back into the blood. What does the digestive system break down? Food, of course. We have a lot of makanan gratis this weekend. I think I get the move. But the digestive system is an amazing system. It includes the stomach, gastric, and it includes this amazing right here, upper esophagus. Right? This is really an amazing design. The diaphragm, the design of it so that you can eat and nafas at the same time. Breathe and eat at the same time. And number 15, the difference between ovaries and testes in the reproductive system is the difference between males and females. So number 15 is reproductive system, number 14 is testes, and number 13 is females. No transgender in this grouping here. Now if we looked at this and asked the question for Tanya, is this complete? What is missing from this list? And the answer is the next worksheet. This list is not complete because it doesn't have the respiratory system. Maybe the respiratory system. Yes. Maaf. So just like the other worksheet, the answers for this are at the top. And remember that we're moving from an outline into a kind of summary. So these are examples of sentences that form complete paragraphs. But they describe amazing. This is ilmu keajaiban, a miracle science of how we can breathe and eat at the same time. And this describes it very simply. Like in the first sentence, it says all animals need oxygen, right? To make energy. And in the second sentence, it makes a jimbata. It says, this oxygen, we get this oxygen, right? This oxygen from the, not air, but the air, right? Spelled the same, right? Looks, you need. Sometimes confusing if you're thinking in two languages. And in order to get the oxygen into the blood where it can be transported to the rest of the body, the air travels through a system called respiratory system. So here we're starting to give a general introduction, a kind of pembukaan, to tell us what does the respiratory system do. And this is what an article does. In the very first paragraph, it doesn't have to start out saying the respiratory system is. It can actually describe the respiratory system and parts of it, or something that's important. But let's go on. When you blank, breathe, right? When you nafas, or inhale, body through the nose or the mouth. Good. From there, it passes through the blank, which forces air into the blank. This is the ilmu keajaiban part. It passes through trachea, right?
forces air into the bronchi, right? And food into the esophagus, so that you don't swallow air and you don't breathe food. If you breathe food, you choke. And the air travels down the trachea into the bronchi and then on into the lungs. I think we missed one there. Pharynx. Which one did we miss? Trachea into the pharynx. Right? Or pharynx into the trachea. It's trachea and everything. Okay. And then the air travels down the trachea into the bronchi and then on into the lungs. Notice in the third paragraph, paragraph Katika, it follows it and makes a jimbatan to the last sentence. So in the lungs, so it's now describing it further. Oxygen from the air enters the remember, circulatory system is the blood that transports air. So it has to be blood. Yeah. At the same time, the waste gas, CO2, is leaving the body, exiting the body, and leaves the blood and leaves the body when you So you've got inhale, which is added, and exhale is exit. And some blank also leaves the body when you exhale, and this is why mirrors get foggy when you breathe on them. You go like this, water vapor, because we're mostly we're made of mostly water. And the blank, this muscle right here, really one of the strongest muscles in the body, diaphragm, or we say diaphragm. Diaphragm. It's an amazing muscle that we don't use until we're born, until hamil, right? Or lahir. And now, as a kind of conclusion paragraph, it emphasizes significance, or apapenting. It's important to keep the respiratory clear so oxygen can keep Mangalia, right? Keep flowing. If something gets in your nose and irritates you, you sneeze. If something gets in the trachea or bronchia, it irritates it, you cough, isn't it? If something irritates your diaphragm, I think that's when you hiccup. Yes? It's a spasm. And finally, if the brain is not getting enough oxygen in it, it might force you to, like, borrow, right? Oh, I'm sleepy. But these are all examples of structure in grammar. And it provides a way to first outline a paragraph about a system. And this would be one description, one section of a larger system description. Using sentence structures like this help you to build recognition of scientific language. We're going to have time to look at this again in an academic way. If everyone can follow me with this next part. usually academic language uses very simple sentence patterns. They're so simple that we can use it like a mathematical equation. Most of the time, in English, every sentence has to have a keterana, a kerja, and some object, usually, of the verb. And this might be a preposition phrase or an adverb in some simple sentences. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to just show you how simple they are. And we can look at the examples, for instance. In example number 1, we have computer desktop, or laptop now, provides access to our files. So the keterangan is like a double noun, a computer desktop or a computer laptop. So two nouns can combine to become a compound noun. In example number 2, which is one of the more common ones, we put a descriptor in front. So example 2a, at the bottom, as designed, the computer desktop provides access to your files. Or 2b, when your computer is working properly, the computer desktop provides access to your files. And this is very common in academic language, is simply to add a descriptor in front of the sentence. Number 3 is very, very common. We take two sentences and we join them together as a compound sentence. So the example is, the computer desktop provides access to the files and the external hard drive stores backup files. So we've got two different subjects, two different verbs, two different sentences combined with tapi or dan, and or but. And we can connect them. Sometimes we use this in jika lalu phrases, like if then. So we can create a kind of clause. In number 5, right? No, then we can change this by adding the descriptor in front. So according to the instructions, the computer desktop provides and the external hard drive stores. Again, two different sentences, and all we've done is add a descriptor in front. And these become complex for readers. So usually most scientific language is going to use this variation with this pattern here. And maybe change them. In number 5, we have an interesting variation. We have a subject with a verb and an object, but then we only have a verb and an object. So we have the same subject for two different verbs. So the example is, the desktop provides access and contains shortcuts. So you don't have to say this one twice. You only have to say it once. So the example, the desktop provides access to, we might have another variation here. So the same subject and the same verb, but two different objects. The computer desktop provides access to your files and critical information about your computer. And this one is common, but it can be confusing for the reader. So many times this is only used in special circumstances, like in a summary section or a kalimat kunci. In number 7, we have a very complex sentence. We have a descriptor that's inside of the sentence. So the descriptor could go right here. So subject descriptor with the verb, and then the object, or it can be subject, verb, descriptor, and then the object. This one is common, and usually in Bahasa, it's a relative clause, a yang phrase. So the example is in 7a, the computer desktop, yang your starting point, provides access. Or this one here is an adverb. Describing the action of provides. So the desktop provides, as simply as possible, access to your files. The final one is not used very often in academic writing. There are some examples of it, but normally we do not end the sentence with an extended description. But there are examples of this. 8a is the computer desktop provides access to your files. Yang, right, which is handy, or in this case even bahwa, right, which is handy when you need to locate a file quickly. 8b, the computer desktop provides access in the external hard drive stores, thus providing 2 ways to access all files. And we do see that type of sentence in academic writing. It's more conclusive and a summary remark when we use the word thus. It's a descriptor that comes at the end of the sentence. And 8c, again, as designed, puts the descriptor in the beginning. The computer desktop provides access, and then it has a dengan phrase with backup copies on the external drive. Sometimes these sentences are difficult without looking at actual examples. So we provided one that says, Fundamentals of Computer Science. And again, all of the answers are provided at the bottom in a word bank. Now, again, I'm a techno-dinosaur. I learned statistics longhand. We were not allowed to use a calculator. And SPSS had not been invented, neither had the internet. So when we learned about computer science, some of the terminology, the new vocabulary, is just like science fiction. But it's important to realize that this vocabulary is what everyone's using now. In academic language, it's very important to be able to use your computer with backup hard drives, to be able to use communication devices and apps. So these are mostly heteronymous. They're nouns used in IT. So the blank is the program that manages the hardware of the computer system, including CPU, the central processing unit, memory storage devices, and in- and output devices. What is the blank? The software. So we've got software and hardware. Your computer won't run without applications for software apps. So blank software, well, I just gave you the answer, right? Number 2, I said app software. We call them apps now. Application software helps you to carry out tasks such as originally word programming is for typing instead of going ding, ding. That's how I learned. Again, number 3 are supercomputers. Every university, every institution, especially banks, they've got these supercomputers now working on nanotechnology level. So they're called cloud technology. Number 4 is an interesting example. It uses the computer as the noun, and then it has 4 kata characters, 4 verbs. So the computer gathers data, processes it, outputs the data or information, and blank stores. So this is a busy sentence. It's really not recommended in academic language to have 4 kata characters in one sentence, but sometimes you can do it. And this sentence does. Number 5, very straightforward. Binary language consists of 2 digits. Not fingers, but numbers, right? 0 and 1. It's either yes or it's no. Number 6, blank, is the set of computer instructions or programs. What is it? Operating system. Good, good. Tuju. When you connect to the blank, yes, and normally just out of respect, the internet should have a huruf besar. The internet with a capital I. And this is one of the most incredible technologies ever invented, and it deserves a capital I. It was in 1983 when it was developed. Before cell phones, if you can imagine. 8. If you like Will Smith, he's got a great movie called AI. Artificial intelligence, which we would call robotic technology now. It's used especially in theory mining, in game theory, developing intelligence within technology. So number 9, a process known as blank tracks trends and allows retailers to respond to consumer buying patterns. Data mining. Now this is the hot topic in science, and especially medical publications. Data mining is the future of research at Menulis, because we're sharing data in the Human Genome Project, we're sharing data in the National Archives of Health Sciences, and all of this is done through an amazing kind of super Google search called data mining. And we even use it in our Word programs. If you want to look up a word in a document, it'll just search it, and then it will show you every place that that word occurs. And the future of research will be very simple then. If you want to look up a topic, look up a previous study or a technique, all you do is data mine. Number 10, process of elimination would mean the last answer is the best answer. Mainframes, right? This is what Gajimata has. We have a super mainframe supporting each department's Analytion unit with an incredible network of computers. And we can do this with Wi-Fi networks now too. So we don't have to run all the wires everywhere. We just kind of pump it in hyperspace. Again, if we put them side by side, we can describe the language with examples of structure and grammar, with vocabulary. Or, mathematically, we can describe the language in code. So, in a linguistic way, many times, what we're doing because of this beautiful Bekiran, this gift of God that we've been given, we can do this at the same time. This means writing, and this means reading. And this is how we learn language. Even before we learn to read and write, we're learning to listen, and we're learning virtually how to speak. But it's an ability that's done through parallel processing. It's a neurological phenomenon. Again, ilmu keajaiban, what the kids call Gai, the world of Gai. Gai. And again, it's the same world that we're talking about. I can write a sentence pattern in a mathematical or binary language. And what I'm doing is encoding. And for you to understand it is a process of decoding. Is there any questions? I think we have time to maybe look at a couple of examples of what the fourth challenge was, is paraphrasing. So at first we were talking about challenges, and we realized that some of it is in the vocabulary. The academic language is difficult. We also talked about structure in grammar, about where the words go in a sentence and how they pattern. When we looked at outlining, we could see that there's a kind of way to organize your ideas. So before you write a rough draft, before you can revise it, you should outline it so that you start using codes. And we do this all the time. Even here, if I use a code like this, what does this stand for? Information technology. The IT department, every university. And of course, it looks like the pronoun it, right? Dia. So we have to be clear about it. Of course, if we take this to the next level in paraphrasing and summarizing, sometimes we can use different words that are katakunchis. So in this exercise, there's only a few examples, but I think there's enough for each person to do one. So let's look at the first example first. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think I can do one. I'll do the first one. So the instructions explain paraphrasing means to restate an idea using different words, while keeping the meaning the same. So read the sentences, decide if the second sentence paraphrases the first. In other words, decide if the two sentences have similar meaning. Circle, similar or different, and if different, explain. So let's do kenapa berbeda. The first one, I'm going to read this one, it's done for you. So for 2 years, Gagarin served in operational units, and then in 1959, he volunteered for an exciting new program. And B, It was a thrilling day for Gardner in 1959 when after 2 years he was chosen for an exciting new program. Now these two sentences, they look similar, but the artinia, the meaning of the sentence, they're different. Why is it different? The first sentence is he volunteered, and the second one says he was selected. He was chosen. So let's try them one by one. Anda mau bisa membaca? Oke, dua. Keras ya, aku orang tua tidak bisa mendengarkan. Dua. And then number B, or letter B, so now compare the sentences. Apa ide Anda? Similar atau berbeda? The sentences almost are identical. Almost. They're almost the same, except this word. Ini dalam bahasa Perancis. It's a French word, and it means not scheduled. Impromptu meeting. He called an impromptu meeting. It was not scheduled. So this is the kata kunci. To summarize the sentence, you have to recognize that this code has a meaning. So the sentences are verbatim, right? Because B says after our scheduled lunch, but A says after the unscheduled lunch. So the two sentences are not the same. They are different. They are actually opposite meaning. Ini sulit, sangat susah, sangat sekali. It's very difficult because this is the key word. If you don't recognize this word, you would have to look it up in a dictionary or try to break the code. Impromptu. Bisa mencoba ketiga nih. Kenapa? I guess so. Apa artinya although? Kenapa? Slightly different, maybe. But okay. It is, strictly speaking, galak, it's different. But the artinia, probably the same. Good to be so particular about it. It's good. Coba empat, empat. Any civics italic, right? This is very difficult. What do you think? Similar atau berbeda? Maaf, this is like a mentabu. It's a very difficult sentence. And it uses something right here that's what we would call, or a colloquial expression, a common way of talking about the present sekarang. So, history is not made kemarin. History is not made in the masa depan. Right now, in this moment, this is when history is made. So, these sentences are similar. It's a multiple question. Very, very difficult. Maybe not the best example for this class. But again, sometimes when we read a scientific article, we have to double check and think deeply about the meaning of a certain passage, a certain phrase. If we don't understand it, we have to investigate it. As a scientist, we have to ask the question, what do they mean? And do you really understand what the scientist or the article is saying? So in this case, you cannot just assume everything. Let's try Kalima and Mahapu. That was very difficult.
America said, I'm aware of that word from his ascending fire receipt. Americans were not aware of his flight or his intense feeling of joy.
Now, if in a Galak sense, it's true. These sentences are different because they are different words. So when they say an ascending fire machine, it does mean a spaceship. So the meanings are actually the same, but the words are different. Again, probably these examples are just a little too difficult. And it assumes that we're maybe able to decode each of the individual meanings. So the Americans slept unaware that the astronaut, very famous Gagarin, the very first man to fly in a rocket ship, that he was ascending in a fire machine. That's what his neighbors called it. A rocket. And Americans were not aware of the space flight or his intense feeling of joy. The sentences' meaning are the same. but the vocabulary words, the differences in the choice of words. And that's why synonyms many times are challenging. I think, you want to try? What is it?
Can you come from outer space?
The similarity is that the sentences sound very much the same. But the kata kunci is that outside usually refers to kelawar pintu, but outer space refers to kelawar bumi. If outside, maybe if it said the solar system, then it would be the same meaning. It's hard. Go ahead. No, again, only one.
It was so great that we decided that the organization would be to share a bag of jello every Sunday night. The first idea of sharing a bag of jello every Sunday night was excellent. Simple.
What do you think? Similar or different? Okay, first off, does everyone know what jello is? Right? It's my daughter's favorite. She always wants to make jello. Okay, so it was an invention. Someone invented jello. And it was such a great thing that people started bringing jello for the pesta. They even have pesta jello. A reason to get together. Let's have a jello party. It's what Kamaks really like. And these two are similar. They're actually basically saying that people love the idea of having a jello party every Sunday night. And this is what astronauts do. Astronauts are famous because they eat jello. It supposedly helps them stay healthy. Again, ma'af, these are difficult. They are not easy words to decode. Alex, you want to try one?
Sensors were attached to this body before the down the pressure, sit, and having on it. After sensors have been attached to this body to off the pressure, sit, and having on it.
Okay, kenapa berbeda?
Down and off.
Okay, good. So, if I put on my helmet, in English, British English, even Australian English, we'll say, he donned his hat, he donned his helmet. We don't use it in American English very often, but you might hear this. He put on. But the other sentence says, he tipped his hat, he took off his hat. So, ite utama, with paraphrasing, is that sometimes one word can make a difference in the meaning. It can turn the meaning completely to its opposite and give it the antonym meaning. So you have to be very careful when you're paraphrasing and summarizing. You have to make sure that you understand one word's meaning. Let's go back to the exercise before lunch.
please.
When we have a paragraph in an academic journal, it's sometimes good to print it. Or, if you're using some of the new Word programs, you can highlight sections. So here, if I walk around and I look and see some of you, you probably made notes. You highlighted it, sound, symbol, and you can use your Word program to highlight sections that are Hookom. So if we're going to summarize and paraphrase a long paragraph like this, the first thing we do is to annotate the text, or highlight the Hookom. So even when you're reading, you can change the color. If you don't know a word, you can use kuning. If it's something really important, you might use biru or mera. Sometimes we can just put an underline or italics for emphasis. It creates a law, a kind of highlights. Now, if we want to summarize and paraphrase, you can use an outline before you even write. No one can write a perfect paragraph just right away. I cannot. First, I have to read for the idea Hookom, the main ideas. And then the next thing, I have to outline what would be what are the main concepts. So before I can write 3 sentences to summarize this, probably I can make an outline like this. Apa ide utama? So this whole paragraph is about one idea, satu ide. Advanced reading skills. We can talk about it like this. It may be 4 main ideas. Number 1. Mengalir seperti air. So we can just flow through artinya. And maybe there's a connector between fluency and recognizing meaning. Possibly a kind of crossover here. It mentions something that is called sight words. And if we don't know what they are, we might have to look in the dictionary for what is called dolce is. Because when we learn the English language, there are probably about 300 words that you have to learn that are unique. Example might be do. It doesn't sound like anjing. It doesn't make bark bark sound. It's a sight word that you have to learn when you learn the English language. The only way is you learn that dog means anjing, or canine, some other equivalent. These are called sight words. So recognizing meaning, sight words, again, probably connected by some sort of vocabulary. There's also an interesting aspect here called and it's given another meaning. Sound symbol match. Most of the sounds in the English language are shared with the Indonesian language, but not all. For example, how do you say this? So this sound right here is CH, right? Chuku, right? It's pronounced Chuku. But if I see dalam bahasa Inggris, a C normally is K. So ini kuku, right? Pantai yang bernama kuku. So this is a sound symbol match. It is similar to here. Ini negara, nation. But here, TI is pronounced so it's not native. I mean, maybe in the word native speaker, but in this now, it's a so this is called alphabetic principle in linguistics. So when we look at a paragraph like this, it's more complex the more we read it. And as we outline it, if we can identify ide utama, the main idea, then we can go and find the main concepts. And related to these concepts are examples. And of course, the main purpose here is a kind of results. If you become an advanced reader, it has specific results. Right? Reading becomes like percakapan teman. That when I talk to you, if you can understand me, then we're having a good conversation. And And when you read a text like this, when you understand it, you have that same kemengertian. You understand the basic idea, the main ideas, and the related concepts. Again, this is not easy. In order to have a language, to speak in English, to read in English, to listen, generally linguists will call it fluency. First, you have to become accustomed to listening. So it's recommended, for instance, that you use TEDx talks. There's thousands of these 3 5-minute talks that are educational. And you can listen to the talk once, twice, maybe 5 times before you understand it. But each time you will get more and more concepts. But first you have to get that main idea. TEDx talks are on any topic that you want. Medical, educational. It's fascinating how many linguistic ones there are. And many of them are mathematical. Again, the goal is fluency in any language. So what Yodi had talked about in the beginning is it's okay to use Google Translate. It's okay to start off with a rough draft and then ask friends for help. When you then develop your ideas, you can use some of these approaches: annotation, summary skills, outlining. And of course, we can help you in Format Bahasa with methods and statistics, with the language and linguistics, but especially for targeting your journal. When you send your article in, you have to match the guidelines. You have to be galak about how you submit. And we can help you. How about Martinia? I realize I see the cue back there too. It's probably about time. But if you have any questions, can I help to explain anything? In the future, we hope to have more writing workshops that are specific exercises, latihans. Many times you listen, you see people describing it, and it sounds very easy. But really, it's very difficult. And even just membaca, to read the articles, it may take 3, 4, 5 times before you can really understand. That's, again, part of talking to your unit penalitian, talking to your friends or people in the Office of Research and Publication. We can try to help you, especially with interpreting scientific articles. It's a very unique genre of publication. Comment, question, feedback? Did I talk too fast? Is this too much information? She's like, oh, stop it. Dubana paracetamol. Try to think of this as an obat. Well, not this one. This one. But this is, again, a kind of pilot program to help you develop outlines, develop paragraphs with jembatan, bridging, with vocabulary words. It's not easy. When we take a glossary like this, probably there's hundreds of words here that you can highlight that you don't know. And it might take weeks, even months, to become familiar with half of these words. And then there's sentence patterns. There's only about 3 or 4 that are commonly used. So the best rule is to keep it simple and have some help. Don't be a it can be a gotong royong, it can be a caregiver sama-sama, but you have to kind of reach out sometimes and ask for help. I think Sekolah Tua, the old school, very mandiri, very much not connected. But with new technology now, with WhatsApp, then we're connected so closely that we're in work groups together, we're sharing information with data sharing. It's a time where we can really work together to create publications. Thank you for your time and efforts here. Again, as a pilot program, I feel privileged to be able to share in a small group information that would be difficult, especially